What's up guys, it's Manga Time. Once again I'm here today to bring you my review of Bleach 601 Verge on Vermilion. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this title means at all, to be honest, because I don't, Verge on Vermilion doesn't seem to mean anything. We get the colour page, and it's quite stark, like Kubo's colour pages generally are. There's an awful lot of black. But it looks quite cool. Basically it's just Ouetsu, and he's holding his sword, and he's got funky green hair, and he's wearing some kind of typical, quite stylish clothes like Kubo likes to draw for his characters when they're not in universe clothing. But I don't really know what vermilion has to do with it. Maybe the colour of Ouetsu's checkered shirt is vermilion. I'm not really sure. I think it's a shade of red. But I don't really get it. I don't know the point in it, so I don't know. Whatever. But it starts with the four elite Sternritter kind of looking at Ouetsu as he's like, shut up and come at me. I'm going to take all of you on. It's the Zero Division's battle. And he basically just points his sword at them. And it's interesting to note as well that his, the sword's guard, I think it's called the Tsuba, is totally blank. It's just a circle, and it's very basic, and just there's no, design on it or anything. And I think Yamamoto's Tsuba was very similar to that, so that's quite interesting. It might have something to do with the age of the Zanpakuto toe or something. That's just something random I picked out. It probably means nothing at all, but I think it was quite interesting nonetheless. And anyway, there's a couple of bits of dialogue in this chapter that I don't think make an awful lot of sense. I kind of want the manga stream translation to come out, so that I can get a better kind of view as well. But for now, I'm just going to go on the Manga Panda version. Manga. Well, I read on Manga Reader, but whatever. Anyway, similar to M, the Miracle, Gerard Valkyrie leaps at Ouetsu, and Ouetsu dodges it very, very easily. And he's just kind of it's been so long since you took that thing out. I've started to see the rust come over it. He's talking about Gerard's sword. And Gerard kind of swings at him, and Ouetsu dodges again. But basically, Gerard's attack is apparently so powerful that he can massively damage the Tree of Life cage, which does kind of make you wonder why he didn't attack it earlier. But anyway, he's kind of nice evasion, and Ouetsu says it's the law to evade a hug from a brother, if you know what I'm saying, which is kind of funny. And then Gerard goes in for a second hit, but Ouetsu blitzes him basically, and this is where things start to get a little bit confusing. Ouetsu, well, not necessarily confusing, but I'm just not sure I'm on the right track. Ouetsu slices him, and Gerard goes down, and then Askin and the others are like, what the? And Askin kind of what the hell was that? And then Gerard's back explodes with blood. And what Ouetsu says as he kind of strides forwards is that he says he's the Zero Division's number one. He says he's the number one gangster, but I think that's just Ouetsu's way of speaking. Does that mean he's the most powerful member of the Zero Division? I'm not sure. I still think that'll be Ichibei. But anyway, he then says, "With my blade so hot, one kill a swing, yo," implying that his sword is basically a one-hit kill, which seems very, very overpowered, even for a Royal Guard member. But it's possible, it might be. And he says his blade is hot as well, which I theorised last chapter. The reason he had it in the liquid was to cool it down after it was being forged. And again, something else I said, Mera blew fire, so she could still very well be his Zanpakuto. So, at least from what Ouetsu's telling us, it's a one-hit kill Zanpakuto. But Lille Barro has something to say about that. He basically says, he's using very strange techniques, and Ouetsu's like, what are you talking about? And Lille Barro's kind of it's a trick, anyone could tell. And quite honestly, I don't know what the hell Lille Barro is even going on about. Because he says, by soaking your blade in that jelly-like substance, it gains the properties of the jelly in addition to its own. Right? What are the properties? How does Lille Barro even know what the properties are? All we've seen so far is that Ouetsu one-shotted Gerard. How does that have anything to do with the jelly? Ouetsu even said that his sword was very hot, and therefore that jelly could simply just be there to cool it down. It could be that the jelly is what's boiling hot and what's giving him the power to one-hit kill someone, but we don't really know that. And Lille Barro just seems to kind of be making assumptions out of nowhere. He then says there's no way Gerard could have been hurt by something like that, except for the fact that Gerard is bleeding out on the floor. And then he tries to shoot Ouetsu, and his blasts just fly off into the trees. And he's very surprised, and he's like, what did you do? And this is where I think we kind of discover that Lille Barro was wrong, and he was essentially trying to rationalise Ouetsu's strength. And what we get is, he's like, what did you do? How did you make my attacks miss? And Ouetsu's like, nothing, I just kept my guard up and blocked them, basically. He's just like, they're perfectly aimed, but I just split them up and broke them up, and Lille Barro is not taking any of this, so he clearly thinks there's something dodgy going on. But what we need to take from this is just that Ouetsu's just that powerful. He's just that powerful to one-shot Gerard in one hit, and he's just that powerful to be able to deflect Lille Barro's attacks. I think it's as simple as that, really. And Lille Barro is trying to rationalise it, but he's shooting at Ouetsu, and Ouetsu's just literally splitting the bullets in half. He's literally split, and we can see that their shells are their cases are breaking apart. And then Ouetsu, literally, he's in front of Lille Barro and he slices him in half, basically. Yeah. Lille Barro gets cut in half, pretty much gets cut in half, and his body just kind of explodes with blood. And Ouetsu turns his attention to Askin and Pernida. And Askin's kind of like got this face on where he's like, fucking hell. And now Pernida does something super weird here. Its head just sort of starts going like all bobbly and shit. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. And then it makes this noise that's like raw, and then it's really badass though, because Ouetsu just chucks his sword and it goes straight through Pernida's face. And then we get this amazing panel where Ouetsu basically appears behind Askin, grabs the sword, and kicks off of Pernida, basically. And it's just really badass. And again, Askin pulls another fucking hell face as he's just about to get completely destroyed, basically. He tries to twist round, but Ouetsu basically slices him across the chest. As Pernida presumably dies. Askin goes flying, and Ouetsu's like, whoa, that was amazing, you moved right behind me to try and get me, and he's like, I'm just too good, basically, is what he says. And Askin's still able to talk, which I think is a testament to Askin's strength, whereas the other three seem to have gone down in one hit. Askin's just like, well, so much for surprise. But then Ouetsu cuts his throat. I think he cuts his throat, or he just slices him across the face, which is pretty harsh. Anyway, Askin's dead. It looks like he's dead. He's down and out. And basically, I don't know what the hell Ouetsu's going on about here, because he speaks in such a weird way. But I think it's very important what he's saying. I think he's talking about the sword. He says that she's a failure. She's too sharp despite being so flexible. Blood slides off of her because she's too smooth to handle. And then he says it's no wonder she hasn't got anybody that appreciates her. And then we get to see the box of jelly stuff. I don't really know. And then he says, there's no sheath out there that could hold her down. And this makes her an outcast, not worthy of being called a blade, so she's never had any loving. So she's too strong, and she's very flexible. She's very smooth to handle. And she's too powerful for a sheath, basically, is what he's saying. I think that's the crux of it. So he does have to carry her around in that water. And now this is very weird. I don't know what he's talking about here. He says, I'm very happy she came to me at the Soul King Palace, and now she and I are going to rock this world. This is all thanks to him, Yhwach. I don't know what that last bit means. Presumably, Ouetsu, at the beginning, he's very grateful that he forged such a powerful sword. I think that's what he's saying. I don't know what on earth he's talking about as far as Yhwach's talk, the Yhwach bit. If I was to speculate, as I like to do, maybe he's talking that he just had to forge a sword like this because of the threat of Yhwach. Maybe that's the only thing I can kind of think of. Like, I have no idea. It strikes me as maybe the sort of thing we'll find out a bit later. Anyway, Ouetsu suddenly gets interrupted by this very strange Reiatsu. It looks a bit like, his body just kind of looks a bit all distorted. It's a bit weird. And he's just kind of like, what the hell? And then we see Askin rising behind him. Yes! Seriously. And he's like, it's not over. I'm not going to die. Not from something like this. And his face is just in this pool of blood on the ground. But Ouetsu's now sweating. He's kind of like, well, what's up with that, man? And he's just like, I don't really know what he's doing. He's kind of like doing this to his face. I don't know if he's kind of like wiping sweat away or something, but he's looking really nervous. Like, really nervous. And Askin's like rising slowly from the ground, and there's just all this blood. And we get this very interesting bit about Askin now, where he says some really weird stuff. There's a lot of really weird stuff being said in this chapter. And he's like, the only reason His Highness took me in, presumably meaning made him a Sternritter, or like even brought him into the Vandenreich, was because I wasn't dead when he found me. Okay. Askin then says, crappy power, ain't it? I hate it so damn much, because when I think about it, I'm always feeling like I'm close to dying, and he licks the blood off his hand. And from what I can see, all the blood has pretty much disappeared. Now, right, and that's the end of the chapter. Yeah. So this is an awesome end to the chapter. Askin is not down, and in fact he seems to be actually pretty much alright. And he's basically going to turn the tables on Ouetsu, I think. And maybe even kill him. And I'll get into that in a minute. So, Askin kind of gets back up, and I think there's a couple of things that could be going on here. His power appears to be, remember he's D, the death dealing, something karmic based. So, it's really hard to say. But since in the panel when he says the only reason His Highness took me in, blah blah blah, he's got blood running all down his face, and then the next panel there's nothing there. I think what could possibly be happening is that either the blood is going back into his body, or it's just kind of dripping on his hand because then he licks it off his hand. But then I don't think it would have all just disappeared off his face like that. So it's really hard to say if he's taking the blood back in him. And then what I think he might do is he'll unleash basically the power that Ouetsu unleashed upon him and probably kill Ouetsu. That's what I think he'll do. That's what I think the death dealing is going to be. He takes in a certain amount of damage and probably dies, but then he kind of comes back from death and unleashes that same damage upon a person who did it to him. So it's kind of like a counter, really. It's definitely a bit weird, and I'm still not entirely sure if I'm even right. Well, obviously I'm not sure. I haven't got a clue, to be honest. But Askin does say some weird stuff, and that's kind of why I want the manga stream translation as well. He says the only reason His Highness took me in was because I wasn't dead when he found me. That implies that someone tried to kill Askin, but Askin's power kicked in, presumably, and kept him alive. And he hates his power because he always feels like he's close to dying. Now, I kind of presume what he means by that is he has to die for his power to activate. So he's always feeling like he's close to dying because he's always dying, basically. That's kind of the only thing I can think for his ability, and then he is going to unleash it, and it's going to basically just obliterate Ouetsu. That's pretty much what I think is going to happen. As for the other elite Sternritter, I don't think they're dead. I'd be so surprised if they were dead. I know I said that about like Weisel, but these guys are the elites. We don't even know what Pernida is. We don't know what the Miracle's power is. We don't know what the Compulsory is. We don't know anything about them. Like, seriously, if Kubo killed them off, that would be shit. I'm just saying that right now. Like, even if my favourite one is still alive, Askin, and he is going to kick some ass, which he is, next week, killing off the rest of those guys, that's shit. If he does that, that's really bad. Because, honestly, he's done that too often with the Sternritter now. Weisel, Royd Lloyd, and Berenice, and the rest of that lot in the first invasion. You know, it gets a little tiresome if you introduce these characters and then a chapter later they're dead. Like, it's just kind of what's the point? And obviously he has big plans for Askin, because Askin's been in it for a while now, we've seen him quite a bit, and now he's about to do something to Ouetsu. So Askin's cool, Askin's probably safe for a little while, I think. But the other three, I really hope they're still alive. Askin might revive them somehow, I don't know. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's pretty much it though for this week, guys. The chapter's art was good. Ouetsu had some really cool choreography. He was moving around like a badass. I love the panel. Panel of the week is when he grabs the sword out of Pernida's face. That was just cool. And what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, not too much else to talk about as far as the story goes. We're just going to have to see next week just how badly Askin destroys Ouetsu, I think, is pretty much what's going to happen. And it's going to be very cool to learn a bit more about Askin. I hope we do, and I hope he survives for a bit longer as well. I believe next week is the start of volume 67, I think, so this volume's ending with Askin getting back up on his feet, which is cool. So yeah, hopefully we'll get a bit more on this fight next week, guys, a bit more progression. But that's about it, really. I'm going to drop an 8 on this week. It wasn't as good as last week. Yeah, my favourite bit was probably the end, because Askin's awesome, and I was just getting really excited to see what he was going to do. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to next week. The cover page was okay, there's a lot of black on it, and a lot of people think that's really stylish and really cool, and it's an artistic choice, and I'm sure it is. And I like it. It looks cool, but I just wish Kubo would do a bit more with his colour pages. Like, I would have loved to have seen a face-off between, like, the Royal Guard and the Elite Sternritter. 5v5 if you put Hashwolf in it as well. That just looked awesome, but, you know, whatever. Fair enough. Someone, I think, on a forum said it looks like a fashion magazine cover, which it kind of does, actually, and we all know that's Kubo's thing. We all know fashion's his true calling. Anyway, that's it this week, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. As always, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and that's the subscribe button. And give this video a like, that'd be great. But until next week, guys. Actually, no, not till next week. Let me know in the comments. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Askin is just going to destroy Ouetsu? Do you think the other elites are dead? There's quite a lot of those questions this week. When do you think the Royal Guard are going to get involved? What do you think Ouetsu was talking about as far as Yhwach is concerned? Just let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That'd be really great. But until next week, guys, see you later.